Hello and welcome, Katy here from Eastwick's Paper and Ink. I'm so excited to be back with you for another Crafter Party weekend. And today I've got a set of 6 holiday cards featuring mainly the supplies from the Crafter Party kit with just a couple of additional stamp sets from Maker Forte. And I'm going to use just color Hive inks. I'm doing some basic cards and using up some of the pattern paper that's in the kit as well. I thought I'd keep my projects on the simpler side to show you that you don't need a ton of stuff to be able to create some fabulous cards with this kit. So to start, we're going to use the glitter from the kit. That is the Sugar Sparkle telephone box. That's a piece of lightweight ivory cardstock. This is the Holiday Wreaths stamp set from the kit, and then I've got the Holly Berries stamp set that's available at Maker Forte. So I'm taking a piece of that ivory cardstock. I call it layering. It's about 65 pounds. It's not very heavy. It is a cover weight, but it's a nice smooth surface to stamp on. Just pick that up at the local craft store. And I'm going to take one of the wreaths that's in the Holiday Wreath stamp set, and I'm going to ink that up in Cotswold green. Now, if you don't have this green, you're missing out. It took me a little while to get this as I've been building up my Color Hive ink stash, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite greens in the Color Hive line. So I highly recommend you pick that up if you haven't already. Now, I'm just going to ink that up one time. I will have to move my magnet. My magnet's a bit thick, and so sometimes I have to take that out so that I can get a good impression. Now, once I get that stamped, I'm going to do all my stamping. So I'm going to do the sentiment. This is the Season's Greeting sentiment that comes within that Holiday Wreaths stamp set. And then we're going to take some of the crystal clear glue. Let me make sure that's what it's called. Sorry about that. Yep, the Maker's Magic Crystal Clear Glue. You get a bottle of this in your kit, which is great. And it's perfect for glitter because it's not a runny glue. It's a nice, thick, solid glue. But here I'm finishing up my stamping. I did ink that up twice. And I'm going to take just some circle dies, any circle die that you might have in your stash that will fit around the wreath. I could have cut this out with the scan and cut, but I just decided to use a circle die. So now I'm going to take that crystal clear Maker's Magic glue and start creating little balls, if you will, of glue on the berries that are on that stamp set. And of course they stamp up in the same color as your ink, but I wanted to add a pop of red to this. I did make this pretty much like a monochromatic card, with the exception of the card base, which I use black. And I know some people probably shy away from black at Christmas time, but I find that black cardstock really allows your project to pop. So here I'm just going through and adding the little dabs of glue. Now, I really like this glue because it's kind of thick and it gives you a lot of control. You're not going to have to worry about, it gushing out or anything like that. You really do have some nice control with this ink. And I love the little tip that's on it and the way that the cap seals the top, so you don't have to worry about it drying out, which is great. So once I get all those little dots on, and this is real time. I didn't have to edit this and speed it up or anything like that. As long as I had everything with me in my space, these cards took about 5 minutes each. So they're not difficult to replicate. The longest would probably be the background that we're going to do with the holly berries, but I tried a bunch of different backgrounds with it and I didn't love them until I got to the holly berries. And I even tried a bunch of different colors. I tried telephone box, to have a pop of red in the back. I did Everglades. I did palm tree, and I didn't love any of them, but I like that Cotswold green on the back, so that your focus stayed in the center with the sentiment. Okay, so now I'm just touching up because my initial berries were a little thin. And so as I got my groove in squeezing my bottle, I made some better little dots. So now I'm going to take that Sugar Sparkle and Telephone box. And there's some great glitters. I like the, what is it, Jelly Shoe? Yeah, Jelly Shoes. That green is really pretty. It's almost got like a blue rainbowy holographic look to it, which is great. So here I'm just dusting off all that glitter, give it a couple flicks. I will take a paintbrush to get all that little fine detail that's there on the edge. And now we're going to set that off to the side to dry because that glue does take a few minutes to dry. So that gives us time to stamp our background. Now, when I do pattern paper like this, I just start in the center and I fill in around. That's what works for me, but for other people, you might find, working the perimeter and making your way in might work better for you. So just one stamping. There's a couple, maybe one or two places I might have done like a second generation stamping. I didn't clean my stamp off in between, so I am being careful to, lay down the stamp so I don't get smudges and I don't get that, double stamped haloed look. But I'm just going to fill in every little inch that I possibly can. And I love this Hollyberry stamp set too. If you guys don't have that, the detail that is in that really, takes a lot of the guesswork out for coloring and things because they show you exactly where that shading needs to go. If you wanted to use your alcohol markers or watercolor or something like that, having that shading it's really nice. It takes the guesswork out. So once I get this done and all stamped up, I will put everything together. Quick and easy cards. It doesn't seem that way because, I'm not a quick crafter. I like to take my time and think about how my layouts are going to be. But once I get in the groove, I kind of move through it. Like I said, I'm not cleaning the stamp, so I do take my time with that because I don't want to get ink in places that I don't want it. So a couple more little spots and our background will be complete. And here I'm just going to lay it down and it's moved a little bit, but there wasn't much ink on there, so we're okay. Once I get that stamped up, we're going to move on and put our card together. Oh, I have one little spot. I told you I filled every little inch of this little background. And the background panel measures 4 by 5 1/4. So it will have a little black border around the card base. And the card base is the Eclipse black cardstock. So here, I wanted to pop this up, but I'm actually redoing my craft room and creating space for my husband. So we both have space in the room. So a lot of my supplies are in boxes so that I have room to paint and make, I had to build a new desk and things like that. So I use scrap cardstock and a lot of times I don't buy extra foam or foam tape, and I just use scraps of cardstock to build my layers up, to pop them up. So double-sided adhesive on the back of this main panel here, and then I did add double-sided adhesive to the back of my cardstock circle, and then, the pieces that I use to pop up to adhere it down. I prefer when I'm gluing stuff down like this to use double-sided adhesive. I get less warping with my cards that way. So now we're going to come on to a really super quick card. This one would be great to mass produce quickly. And this is with the a holiday welcome. Sorry. I was looking at my notes. So I like the way that this looked in the package, and using the Fog Color Hive ink just made it really super easy. Now, I'm sure my fellow teachers going to color the heck out of this thing. But I wanted to keep mine simple because I wanted you to see that you can easily mass produce this just by using a gray ink and like a bold red. I'm going to use telephone box for the sentiment. But you could also, use other colors. Everglades would be good. Even the Cotswold, just a bolder color for the sentiment. And the sentiment I pulled from Build a Modern Christmas. And there's several of those in there that you could use. So you could use joy, Noel, rejoice, blessed. There's a lot of them there that you could use to create the same card with a different sentiment. So I'm going to ink up telephone box twice with this stamp set. And the thing about fog ink I want to mention is that it looks kind of splotchy when you stamp it. Just let it dry, let it absorb into the cardstock, and it is the prettiest gray. And you can see there's a lot of detail there, so it would be a great thing to sit down and color as well. I'm going to take some, this is called Star Dream Metallic in Mars is the color. And I think Maker Forte has something similar. They have a metallic red cardstock in the store that is very similar to this. And I just thought that it would look nice layered on with this black cardstock, for the card base. And I don't show this on camera, but when I use black cardstock, I always put in a piece of lightweight, 65-pound white cardstock on the inside for stamping sentiments or writing, little notes and things like that. And I'll show you that at the end there. But this, quick and easy, you could easily line this up in the MISTI and mass produce these, which is great. So next up, I'm going to use some pattern paper. And these are 4 of the sheets from one of the packs. We got 2 packs of pattern paper in the kit. And so I'm just going to cut some squares. And I tried to do different shapes. So I have short ones, tall ones, that kind of thing. So this is really just a freehand cutting of pattern paper to use what's in the box to be able to create some cards. So once I get them trimmed up, I'm going to take a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That's what all of my main panels are. I always like to have that little border. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 layered piece. And I'll line up the cuts of pattern paper that I've made to see if I need to trim down or whatever to make sure that everything fits on there. I end up having 4 pieces, 4 little squares, and this one I was trying to make sure I got the ho 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 in there for the pattern paper, so I'm a little bit more strategic about where I'm cutting, and I'll pull up my paper here and start lining things up. And then I'll just trim down. And I just kept all this in because I wanted you to see, kind of the process that I go through when I'm creating cards, because I'm sure it's just like everybody else. And editing videos, it makes it seem like, everything's already done. But there is a process, obviously, to getting to where we want to create. So I lay these down and I do mix them around after I trim them, just because I wanted to kind of make them look like they were staggered presents. And I'll use the baker's twine. There's some white and green, white, red and green, and red and white baker's twine that comes in the kit. And I'm going to use that. Now you could use twine, like the I'm trying to think, like the jute twine, like the brown twine, but I just thought that this looked really cute with the baker's twine on this pattern paper. And I have another card using pattern paper coming up as well. So now that I've got everything trimmed up to fit, I'm going to start moving things around and seeing where I want everything to fit. And once I get that squared away, I'm going to take double-sided adhesive, just a strip down the center of the back of the pattern paper, and I'll use, trim up my baker's twine to wrap around and adhere to the back so we have a straight line. And I save you the agony of watching me create tiny little bows from the baker's twine. And I make those off camera because it is a little bit tedious to make little tiny bows, but cute. Again, it wasn't too long of a process to do that. And, it just adds obviously to the package, which is nice. And I added, I tried to use, full disclosure, the Maker's Magic glue on that baker's twine, but I couldn't get it to dry and adhere. So I did just use I balled up some double-sided adhesive. If you have glue dots, those will work great too. I'm going to pull that Merry Christmas sentiment from the Christmas Critters sentiment stamp set that comes in the kit, and using telephone box to ink up my Merry Christmas. And I only needed to do that one time, and that panel is done. And again, I'm going to put that on some black cardstock because I just think all that color needs to pop, right? I think that with a white card base, it would kind of get lost a little bit. So now we're going to take another piece of that pattern paper, that ho, 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 and I'm going to kind of bring it down about 3/4 of the way. Now this I kept at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it's going to go edge to edge on the card base. And I'm just marking where I need to trim this with my paper trimmer, just using my pen to mark that. And then I'll trim that up with the paper trimmer, and then throw some double-sided adhesive on the back of that and adhere it to a white card base. So this one is actually a white card base. And again, because I think that depending on your card base, stuff stands out, right? So once I get that down, I'm going to take a piece of the green ribbon. I'll take some double-sided adhesive. It's 1/4 inch wide, and lay that right at the top of the seam of the pattern paper. And then I'll take the green ribbon that comes in the kit, and, adhere that down and really burnish it down to make sure that it sticks. And then I'll trim the excess away. And then I'm going to take some oval dies from my stash. They're old Spellbinders oval dies. They're layering. And then I take some Everglades cardstock. I thought about that red metallic that I used on our last card. Well, not the last one, but the one where we had a holiday welcome stamp set. So either one of those would work nicely, because you have red within that pattern paper. But I'm going to take some Everglades Color Hive ink on a piece of that white cardstock, again using one of the layering oval dies, and stamp that up and add it with some double-sided adhesive onto our Everglades cardstock. And then I will adhere that to the top part of our panel, separating the ribbon. And then I wasn't sure which direction to put this red bow, but right on the side I thought was perfect. And I think that's a cute little Christmas card. Next up, we're going to create an oval card, a circle card rather. And so I'm just showing you that if you, that was like, what was it? I think 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cardstock, and I just folded it in half, and then I took one of my circle dies that would fit the wreath and brought it up above the edge so that we can have a score line, and created a circle card. And these I think are just the cutest. These would be great little gift tags too. You could punch a hole through that, where you're going to see I put the bow, and you could punch a hole there and create that as like a little gift tag, and that would be really cute too. So Palm Tree, I'm going with Palm Tree Color Hive ink for this one. And then I'm going to use Telephone Box to stamp Merry Christmas. And I pretty much used the same stamp sets. I think the only one that I didn't use was the Critters. The main Critters stamp set. But, I pulled from the Sentiments there and the Holiday Wreaths stamp sets too. And then here's my little white bow. That ribbon comes in the kit. I love the little ribbon because it's just little details that you can add. So next up is one of my favorite techniques, and that's ink blending. And some people struggle with it. And on my channel, Eastwick's Paper and Ink, I talk a lot about ink blending, and especially for beginners. But hot press watercolor paper is the absolute best paper you can use to ink blend on, especially if you're a beginner, because it's quite forgiving. Like I said on my channel, I've got a playlist that I share and talk about and give. I did a review with different papers, including the popular Bristol Smooth, and I don't care for Bristol Smooth personally, but watercolor paper, even if you get splotches on it, is so forgiving that you can buff them out. So if you apply good pressure, it doesn't matter what tool you're using, you'll be able to get some fantastic blends. But the hot press watercolor paper takes the work out of that. You don't have to work as hard to get those blends. And here I'm using Neon Lights, and then I'm going to come in with Tartan Teal. But I'm starting, it looked like I was starting at the bottom of my panel, but it really ends up being the top, because I like to fade out my, colors so that I have a soft color at the bottom. And really that ends up being the leftover ink that's on your blending brush or your foam tool. When I'm ink blending too, one of the things I like to mention is that your tool matters. Brushes are going to give you a much softer blend, a lighter color application. If you need deep, dark color saturation, you want to go with a foam tool. It doesn't matter if it's the flat foam tools or a domed tool. You want to make sure that you use foam if you need nice, dark color saturation. You want light color saturation, go with your blending brushes. And that includes your detail. Okay, so there's not, like small foam detail brushes. They're all, they're all brushes, right? But even your detail blending brushes are going to be a soft color payoff. It's just the nature of the tool that you're using. So, brushes are just softer. And so your ink application is going to be a lot softer as well. You can build up the color, because you can see that I'm doing that here, but it takes a little bit more work to build up a deep, dark color saturation. So just think about what you're going after when you're ink blending. But if you're really struggling with ink blending and you're not getting the results that you want, try different paper. And I'm using Arches, but I also highly recommend Strathmore 500 series. You do a search. I pick mine up at Amazon. That's about the only place that I can generally find it, and it's very affordable. And being that we're stampers, I prefer to get the hot pressed because it's smooth and you can stamp on it. The difference is only in the texture. So if you get a cold pressed, it's just going to be a bit rougher. You might have to stamp a few more times. You might not get as clear of an impression with cold press watercolor paper. But I definitely recommend watercolor paper to ink blend on, hands down. So now that I've got my Tartan Teal on and I've bored you to death with ink blending tips, we're going to come in with the Snow Flurries. I think it's Snow Flurries. Let me pull it up. Let's see. Falling Snow, the Falling Snow stencil. And then I'm going to take Snow Flurries, again, using a foam tool. I want nice dark color saturation. Now the thing too with your white pigment inks, which this stuff is fantastic. I've used a lot of white pigment inks, and this one is by far the best. Mush, press down, don't blend, don't swirl and circle, push down on it. One, color Hive inks are reactive, right? So any type of wetness, doesn't matter if it's another ink, pigment ink or water or whatever, it's wet. So it's going to lift off that other ink that you're adding onto the color Hive ink. So mush it down, press it down. It's kind of hard to tell because everything's white now. So just, really push it down. It'll soften as it dries as well. Just keep that in mind. Don't blend like you're blending normally. Push down on your blending tool, and definitely use foam. Don't use a blending brush because your instinct is always with a blending brush to make a circular motion to blend it. So you can tap it. You can use a blending brush, but you got to tap that into the holes. Okay, Let It Snow. This comes from, I think, the Bold Holiday Sentiments stamp set, and Eclipse black ink. That's all I'm doing here, keeping it simple. And then I will come in again with the falling snow stencil and fill in around that sentiment. So again, pressing in, and I am twisting it, but that's just because I have ink on that stencil already, and I've got some in my my foam tool. So you really just want to press in and push in on that, with your white pigment ink. Don't try to swirl it around. And then I'll lift that up and see where we're at. And then I'm going to fill in a little bit more up above the Let It Snow. And once I get that done, we're going to set it off to dry. Pigment ink, doesn't matter what brand it is going to take a little bit of time to dry. So definitely let that sit and dry. Now this is like a white shimmery cardstock that came in the kit, and I thought that this would be great to layer on I thought about red. I thought about that metallic red, and that would look pretty too because red and blue look nice together. But I opted to go with the white just to keep things kind of brighter, even though, again, we're using black cardstock. And then just double-sided adhesive, and I mushed it down. And here's all the cards that, we created. I, again, added that white cardstock on the inside for our sentiment and a little note. And I like how these turned out. They're quick, they're easy. It didn't take that long to put them together, and easily, mass producible to, build your holiday stash. I think that's my favorite. I love the detail of that stamp, and I love the detail of that one too. And I love that glitter. I can't pick up the shine on it. I tried. I just couldn't pick up the shine. But that finishes it up, my friends. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy your crafter party weekend. I had a blast making these cards and sharing my ideas with you. And thanks so much for having me. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will catch you in another video sometime. Thanks so much.